ready. And this is what President Trump, this is what the American people expect President Trump and expect this country to be doing when it comes to election integrity and making sure that we are extraordinarily vigilant about who is voting and that they're eligible to vote. It is surprising and disappointing that instead of working with us, instead of working to make sure that we have free and fair elections, you have governors like the governor in California, you have these advocacy groups that are really just left-wing liberal groups that are immediately saying, oh no, we're gonna sue again, notwithstanding the fact the Supreme Court has already issued its stay. And yes, we will keep on fighting that. We want to make sure that every vote in this country is counted appropriately. And that's what President Trump has told the American people is going to do. And we're certainly going to back him up with that from the Department of Justice.
There's the Attorney General, Todd Blanche, talking about the Supreme Court win that the Trump administration has enjoyed here with the recent ruling. Fox News says in a 6-3 decision, the Supreme Court handed the Trump administration a victory on Monday, allowing it to enforce President Donald Trump's, quote, election integrity executive order restricting mail-in voting ahead of the November midterms. Let's get to our guest. Margot Cleveland joins us right now, senior legal correspondent at The Federalist. Thank you for being with us today. It's a pleasure to have you on the show to give us some clarity as to what the Supreme Court ruling permits and does not permit.
Great. Thank you so much, Annie. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it's a temporary victory because the stay the stay that was granted only involved the lower court decision that said they can't go forward with the rule at all. And as the court said, that's ridiculous. There's nothing that they've done that shows it's going to be illegal. There's nothing that you can show us that you're actually harmed by it. But as soon as the Supreme Court tossed out the stay of this rule, they published what the Postal Service wants to do, which is so reasonable. Absolutely reasonable. All they're doing is setting up a way so that they can make sure that the ballots can be tracked so that they're only going to the people on the list that the states give them, and that you're not having someone make counterfeit ballots. They're not interfering in the states in any way. But since that rule came out, all that's going to happen is the states are now going to amend their complaint. The same judges who entered the injunction against the rule are going to enter a new one. And in this case, I actually can see a basis for them holding it up because the states are going to say, look, we've already printed these envelopes and we can't go and redo it. And it's too close to the November election, which I am sure the Trump administration anticipated. And what it does is it brings full front and center for voters who is actually looking to protect your votes versus who doesn't care if there are illegal ones in there. So I think that it was a victory for the Trump administration. I actually think it was a victory not just on this case, but on showing how these lower courts have been lawless. In the opinion, there's a footnote where 6 of the justices all say that this lower court has irreparably harmed the executive branch's internal operations. That's a pretty strong statement. And I think it's a really good way to look at what we've seen with all these lower court injunctions that were just lawlessly entered. And the Supreme Court has said that.
So Margot Cleveland speaking with us right now, senior legal correspondent at The Federalist. There are several things. I always kind of try to dig into the story, like how did we get to here?
Sure.
Because we're not legal experts. That's why we get to, or we're so privileged to have you, Margot, come on the show to parse this for us. The first question I have, if the Trump administration, if there's an effort to try to shore up when it is appropriate to mail in a ballot and when it isn't, what kind of concern and what kind of evidence-based valid concern do the people trying to challenge this have? Because I hear people on the left say these are the most secure elections we've ever had. What kind of real evidence do they have that this is something that needs to be looked at very closely?
Right. So one of the things that was really fascinating for me was looking through what the U.S. Postal Service just put out, which was the rule that their final rule on this. And they went through and said, people are complaining that this is for the states to do. Yeah, we're not doing anything. The states can still have their rules in place. So the final rule issued by the U.S. Postal Service went through and ticked off all of these complaints about what Trump was doing and saying, that's nonsense. That's not what we're doing. What we are doing is making sure only ballots that were intended to be sent by the state government are being sent by the state government to the people the state government tells us it wants to go to. And the real complaint is now the feds actually have a list of who these ballots are going to, and they would be able to have the ability to say, wait a second, this person is not a citizen. This person is dead. This person is in jail. So the real problem for the Democrats is not what the Trump administration is doing. It's a fear that it's going to expose their voter list as being completely bogus and unprotected. And we know that they're bogus because of the number of dead people on the rolls, the number of people who have moved who are on the rolls, the number of people who are not citizens that are on the rolls. And we have proof of this. And what do they say? First, it doesn't happen. Then, well, it's only a few people. Okay, well, they didn't vote. And every time we show that their claims are wrong, they just shift the goalposts. Yeah. So I think that this is very helpful that this case is going forward because it brings attention to this massive problem of election integrity we have. And make no doubt, if a Republican wins in 28, the Democrats are going to say that there were irregularities. The only way our country can get past this election denialism that people call, or, that's thrown out there as a slur, is if we can trust our system. Everyone should want that, and they used to. Jimmy Carter was on a bipartisan committee that came up with a whole host of things that should be done and condemned the use of mail-in voting as being ripe for abuse. Democrats used to care about this. They don't anymore.
Yeah. And the issue needs to continue to be pushed. It does seem like, the idea of showing an ID when you vote, the America on the whole, bipartisanly, does want to have trust in our elections and isn't afraid to ask voters to prove who you are when it comes time to vote. And those voter rolls, those voter lists that are being so protected by some of these states, it just begs the question, right? It's like when I have got 4 kids myself, and if I come home and my 5-year-old runs into the other room to hide something, I wasn't suspicious of her when I walked in the door, but I sure am now. I got to go find out what's being tucked behind the cabinet in the piano room or something like that. They're very consistent in the things that they're trying to protect. So, and you referring to this latest ruling here as, it's not the big win that this country needs in order to fortify our elections. But I'd imagine that this is a long haul where folks need to stay. The Republicans pushing against this, the people who might be Democrats who also value safe and secure elections, that they need to continue pushing through the midterms, through the 2028 election until our elections are secured. Do you think that's going to happen?
I do. I don't think the Democrats are going to join along because they benefit when there are these loose laws, and it's a lot easier to get their votes when you have someone going in the urban areas and collecting them and maybe doing it illegally. But I do think that Republicans have realized that we need to make sure the elections are secure. It's unfortunate that the rest of the country doesn't, because like I said, if Democrats lose in 28, they're going to be the ones screaming that there were irregularities. You already have, every time something happens, that you have so many election lawyers from both sides there. So the best way to nix that is to get safe, secure elections where every legal vote is counted, and that those people who are citizens and voting are not disfranchised. I think everybody needs to keep that in mind. Every time there's an illegal vote, that disfranchises one legal vote. I think that we're going to see a continued push to clean up the systems. And I think what you said was perfect, a perfect analogy of why are you hiding this? Why would a state not want their voter rolls clean? It just makes no sense to me.
It makes no sense, but I think we also know the answer. It doesn't make rational sense, which is why we
Correct.
need to be even more diligent in the pursuit and, to stay very close to this issue and don't let up. And Margot Cleveland, I know you're watching it very carefully. Thank you for sharing some of your afternoon with our listeners here on the Annie Frey Show today. We're grateful for it.
Oh, thanks so much, Annie. I appreciate it.
Have a good afternoon. Bye-bye. Margot Cleveland is the senior legal correspondent at the